Alright, my name is Hans, obviously, and I'm going to be talking to you about, well, HiDPI graphics or websites, and, well, with the introduction of all these retina products and similar products for the Android community, I'm going to talk about some of the problems we have with that and websites. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about what this means, this HiDPI and retina. Well, mainly it means that we have more pixels on the screen and that those pixels aren't being used as one-to-one pixels like we used to. Usually you have like a computer, you say you have so and so many pixels widescreen, and you know that every pixel, yeah, you basically knew the size, but now it's not that way anymore. And it's mainly for text. That's what it started with, because text becomes much more crisp. So here we have one display point to one pixel. For example, if you take the iPhone, it has 320 pixels wide screen, but the Retina iPhone has double that, 640 pixels. But it still renders as if it's 320. It just doubles everything up. And this is where the next part comes in, is that it requires the OS to be ready for it. It's drawing everything at twice the size that you'd expect it to do, and making everything more crisp and more even and stuff like that. And this is nothing new. We've seen this for a very long time. We've basically always assumed that screens had a DPI of 70, or that's been the norm. And well, non-mainstream users have had access to monitors that had higher DPIs before, but generally the consumer hasn't been one of those in one of those groups. So HiDPI devices, or as Apple likes to call them, Retina devices, have been introduced the last 2 years with, for example, the iPhone, the iPad Retina earlier this year, and the Retina MacBook earlier this year. And of course, these are just examples, because the Android community has had the same sort of devices, except for laptops so far, where the Mac is the only one. And then the question is, how do these devices, how does it work with devices? Because, for example, this is a Retina MacBook, and it's running, or it has 2,880 pixels width, but what is displayed on the screen acts as if it's way smaller than that. And then we need a browser that can upscale everything by a factor of 2. Everything becomes double wide, double high. And Chrome and Firefox, or actually Chrome and Safari, they can handle that right now. But Firefox and Opera, they can't. Which means that if you have a user on a Retina device or on a Retina computer, then if they're running Firefox or Opera, they just get a very pixelated version of your website. And they get that of every website, because they don't render anything at double. It's just as if you were opening a JPEG of the site, and it just scaled it up, double the width, double the height. But luckily, at least some browsers are supporting it. And because these browsers support it, we get a lot of stuff that works out of the box that we don't have to think about as developers, such as fonts. They are basically sort of vector-like, so they scale automatically, as do CSS styles, as do vector graphics. But there's one thing that doesn't scale as we want it to, and that's every graphical asset that we add to the site. And since this screen doubles everything up, if the image isn't of high enough quality, then you just get a double-sized image. And even though you think it wouldn't be that much of a problem, it actually looks worse than what it would on a non-Retina screen. And yeah, those are images that are in the content, in the background, like background images or logos or whatever, and videos. And yeah, we might ask, like, why is this a problem? Why can't we just serve up multiple images and it will work just fine? Well, the problem is that, as I said, the server, it doesn't know what computer you're on. The server doesn't know that your browser is running on an iPhone or an iPad that has double the resolution. So this is what we really wanted to do. What we want is that users who have a non-retina, they get a smaller image. Retina users, they get the big image. But since it doesn't know, it can't do it. And the problem is the browser, it knows. The browser can say like you have a pixel density of 2. But the browser doesn't have any standards to handle it. You can give it the images, but it's not going to say like we'll automatically pick that one because we know that's right for our user. And in addition to this is basically another problem for the responsive design problems that we already have with serving the correct size for the correct users, not serving someone a desktop size if they're on a mobile phone. And then again, we have another problem, because if someone were on an iPhone, you'd have served them, or an old iPhone, you serve them a small image. But if they were on a newer iPhone, you would have to serve them double the size of that image because of the Retina display. But that double size image is probably the same as you serve on a desktop. But if the desktop were Retina, you'd again have to double that. So it's basically one big mess. So then the question is, well, let's look at other sites. What are they doing? Well, they don't do anything about it. At least most of them don't. And I think Wired was one of the first tech sites that actually embraced this, and they didn't even do it on a big scale. They just took like the details, the logos, everything first, and they made it look better. But there are a number of ways we can do this. We can do it via CSS. We can do it on 2 ways with JavaScript. One that is, as I say, reactive, and one that is proactive. And then we can have some alternative solutions which have showed up recently. I'm going to quickly go through these, and I'm not going to go into any technical details, although the code is there if someone is interested. With CSS, we can use something called media queries, which means that we can say that if a device has a certain width, or if a device has a certain pixel density, we can give it certain images. The only shortcoming is that they will only work for background images. We can't change images in the content with this. And also you need to specify every single image. So this is probably to do for your general background images such as a logo or something like that. And then of course there are some hacks that one can use, but those aren't really meant to be used like that. So for this case I'm just gonna skip through. Then there is the first JavaScript method, which is what, amongst others, Apple uses. What they do is you load up the apple.com site on your computer, and then it loads the normal images, which you will get on a non-Retina device. And then, after the site is loaded, it's going to reload every image to the Retina size. But that's not good, because then you get the normal images, and then you get the big ones, which means you get a lot more bandwidth usage than you would want to. And then there's the second method, which is that as the site loads, it will check for every single image if your computer is a Retina device or not. And it will place the code where it can basically choose between the big image and the large image. And this hasn't been used much, and that's partially because if you are going to do this, the browser will stop every time an image shows up to ask itself, can we handle this, can't we? And it will cause a very small break. But there are some people in the developing community that think that that break is unnecessary and it's too much. And recently there's showed up an alternative solution, which is that if you take, how does this sound? You take a JPEG image, you double the size, and yet you get the same, or you double the size in pixels, but you get the same file size. Actually, it might even be smaller, and the quality would be exactly the same. I mean, that's madness, right? Well, actually it's not, because with JPEG compression on a small image, if it's scaled down, you won't see the compression artifacts that you get, which are some discolorations and stuff like that. They just disappear, and also on the Retina screen they don't show up. So there was actually this article which had implemented a lot of images with the original with 80% JPEG compression, which is fairly standard, and on the other side they had put one with only 35% quality, and it would be kind of hard to tell which one is which. And in that way, you can serve the same for the regular browser and for the Retina browser, because it'll just be scaled down, be the same size, it wouldn't really matter. One problem though. It doesn't work for PNGs, it doesn't work for basically anything else in JPEG, because JPEG is the only format that we use with image compression. And here we have an example. I took this screenshot on the Retina device, where we here have the image with 80% quality, and on the other side we have an image double the size, which is actually 25% smaller than the original. But on my device I wasn't able to say that one would be better than the other. And then of course there's the solution that I really want to have, and that is being discussed to be implemented in future HTML. And that is an image tag that seems the same as the video and the audio tag that we have today, where you basically add multiple sources. And these can even take media queries in that case. So you could say that use this image for that size, use this image for that size. If the browser is so and so wide, use this image. And the thing is that that would solve basically a lot of problems we have right now with responsive web design. And there are also other options that are being considered, but those aren't that future-proof. So this has gained some momentum. It's worth hoping that we'll get that. And of course, it's compatible with all the browsers, because it'll just ignore everything new and everything unknown if it doesn't, if it hasn't seen it before. So. And then of course this is about WordPress, so I'll talk a little about that as well. Well, in WordPress 3.5 there is, they have talked about Retina support, and the only problem with that is that in the current beta version, which is the second, the only Retina support we've seen is that they've added Retina icons to the admin panel. And I've been looking for more progress, but as of now I haven't found any. When it comes to themes, well, for developers, CSS media queries, that's good for basically all your background images. And then there's a very important one, that is don't use images for text. If you just have like headers or something that you use images for instead, they'll look pretty horrible on a Retina display, unfortunately. That's something I've always preferred regular text, and it's also more SEO friendly, but yeah, it looks pretty horrible on a Retina device if you're not taking care of it. And of course there are, for your content, for every image that you throw into your articles, there are plugins that you can use that will dynamically change out the images. So yeah, the HiDPI plugin for WordPress, that's something you can use that will automatically fetch the right image if it is available. It also works with responsive design. And for those who want to read more about how to serve Retina images to the correct devices, there's a good article on Smashing Magazine which is called Towards a Retina Web. Well, that was my my lecture. You can follow me on Twitter or @net, and please ask me any questions if there's something you want to know. I'll take that as a no.